Welcome to another edition of Let's Think About It with Dr. E. Listen, guys, I am so excited about you tuning into our podcast every week. I want to stop and tell you thank you every week for tuning in on every Wednesday at 12 noon. But if you have not, go and subscribe today. Go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so you can get the latest content as it drops. I'm telling you, this has been an amazing ride. I want to thank you for riding it out with me. But today is going to be monumental. If you haven't noticed, I am decked out in my favorite HBCU, North Carolina A&T State University, Aggie Pride. And for those of you that don't know, it's the greatest HBCU on the earth. Yeah, you heard it. Yeah, I know all the rest of y'all talk about your HBCUs, but mine is absolutely the best. But on a serious note, today we're talking about Unmute the Vote, HBCU Power, Protest, and Progress. Today we're diving deep into the issues that matter the most, unapologetically and with purpose. I am a product of an HBCU, and it's more than just about voting. It's about the power of our history, our institution, and our future as African Americans. We're talking about HBCUs, protests, voting, and how decisions in the ballot box, or the choice to stay silent, echoes across the generations of Black students. So in today's segment, we're not just talking about North Carolina A&T State University, but I am speaking to all HBCU current students, graduates, those that have nieces and nephews that attend, whoever is connected to an HBCU. I need today's segment to be the one that you share, that you tag, that you like, because we don't have many more days before the election, and I do not want you to miss this monumental moment in casting your vote. So the legacy of student protests at HBCUs. So let's take it back a little bit and let's look at history. Throughout history, HBCUs have been the epicenter of movements, the heartbeat of student activism. In 1960, we witnessed the Freshman Four from North Carolina A&T State University, the four young Black men who sat down at the Woodworth lunch counter and sparked an evolution. I had the privilege of still going to Woolworths before it actually closed late 80s, early 90s here in Greensboro. And so I not only got to see it, but I got to experience and eat at that lunch counter, the same one they were denied access to. I got to eat there. Their boldness wasn't just about getting a meal. It was about demanding equality at every level in American history. The spirit of resistance has been carried by HBCUs and students for decades. Voting right protests, calls for educational reform, and now the fight for financial equity. But here's the thing. We are tapping into the same energy when it comes to voting. I don't want us to get this thing twisted. I want you to understand HBCUs are on the line in this election. You do not have the opportunity to stay silent. You don't have the opportunity not to vote. Your vote matters. And I know when I had the opportunity to first vote for Bill Clinton, we had an opportunity to actually go to the ballot poll on campus. Now you have to mail your ballot in, which is called an absentee ballot. So students, if you have not, I need for you to get your absentee ballot and mail it into where you live so that your vote can count. Don't use that as an excuse and saying to myself, well, I cannot vote because I'm on campus. No, there's ways to get it done. Go online and access it. And if you just recently turned 18 and you're a freshman, I need to make sure that you are still registered. In the state of North Carolina, they have purged 175,000 people from the voter registration. So you need to go right now and you need to check to make sure that you are still an active registered voter in the state of North Carolina. Because right now, they're already playing games with our votes. We don't have time to miss out on vote because you show up early voting on November 5th and they tell you you're not a registered voter. So please don't let time pass you by. Why voting or not voting matters for HBC students today. Now fast forward to today. Black students at HBCUs are still carrying the torch, but some aren't showing up to the polls. And here's where things get real. The stakes are high. Voting or choosing not to vote can shift entire policies, especially when it comes to things such as student loans, educational funding, and social justice reform. The power holds an immense gratitude, and it holds immense power. Your vote can change policy. Your vote can change how you are educated, and your vote can change your financial education. Many black students, African American students, those of color, have to apply for student aid. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if President Trump gets back in office, and I'm taking my time saying it's very slow, Project 2025 will affect how you get funded for your education. I need for you to understand, it's not about the fact that I'm not going to vote in this election. No, every vote counts. He said the other day, he said, I don't want voters. And I had to think about that statement and ask myself the question, why is it he's telling people, I don't need your vote? He said, I want poll watchers. That is imperative to the fact that he wants people at the polls to watch votes, maybe to steal votes. I don't know. I'm just saying there's something in that statement. Having said that, we don't want you to take that misnomer and say, well, if he's saying he doesn't want votes, why vote? No, no, no. I need for you to show up at the polls, cast your vote, because your vote matters. The black vote still matters in this election. The power to vote is connected to our ancestors. Our ancestors risked their lives just to register to vote. So stopping and filling out a ballot reservation, voter registration, stopping to fill out your card, stopping to actually just take the time to stand in line to cast your vote should not be optional. If it takes you 8 hours to stand in that line, you need to be proud to say, I cast my vote. Now, if you want to avoid the crowd for November 5th, in your state, you need to recognize when is early voting. Early voting for the state of North Carolina is October the 17th. It's October the 17th through November the 2nd. So you need to know what is your state's early voting process so that you can vote early, because it's going to be a waiting process. And I think they're going to make it such so that people are going to get discouraged and want to get out of line. So that means bring you a bottle of water, pack you a lunch, have you some snacks, or do something while you're waiting so that you won't get discouraged while waiting, because it's going to be pivotal. So the weight of student loan debt and the fight for forgiveness of student loans has been something that President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris has been fighting for since he's been in office. So let's pivot to this issue. The Biden administration has pushed for debt relief, in particular significantly for HBCU graduates. Student debt is crushing. Is disproportionately affecting black students. And let's be real, let's be clear. It's an obstacle of creating generational wealth. Student loan debt is higher than credit card debt right now in America. There are more students that have student loan debt than credit card debt. When I went off to college, they were having us sign up for credit cards. They no longer can do that. They made that a law that they cannot allow students to fill out credit cards to get them in debt. So when I went off to college, they were putting credit card applications in our mailbox. They had tables set up on campus, and we were filling them out. They never told us, y'all, we had to pay a bill. We was all set up for credit cards. I mean, we were getting there. I mean, we was signing up, and we was going charging, we was spending, and all of a sudden, my parents were getting bills sent home. And Mama said, Erica, did you sign up for a credit card? I said, yeah, Mama, they signed up for a credit card. They gave us a water bottle. They was giving us all kinds of stuff. She said, but you do know you got to pay a bill. I said, no, they didn't tell me that. They just told me, fill this out, and I can get a credit card in the mail in 5 to 7 days. And listen, they got slick. They sent it to our mailbox at school. They didn't send it to our home address. So we got a credit card and we were living it up. But then a bill came. I didn't have a job. I didn't know how I was going to pay that bill. So they got us. So we started getting debt early. Now that was some 35 years ago. So now credit card debt is high, but student loan debt is significantly much higher. So what are we saying? The HBCUs are in a great place now for the Biden administration to counsel debt. And do you realize that those that were part of the Trump administration and those that are currently in the House and Senate, those, especially the Republicans, they are now trying to hold back. They don't want any more debt cancellation. Do you know, Rod, what that realizes? If they counsel debt for HBCU students, for student loans, it frees up debt, and we now have access to loans and things we could not otherwise get. They are afraid of people of color now will have same access power that they have, going to get loans at banks, going to get access to money. You're now crushing generational debt, and now you're starting to create generational wealth. And that is a scary thing for white America. White America is saying, I do not want them on the same level. So if they cancel debt, we now have access. So HBCUs already are facing systemic underfunding, already. But yet they produce, listen to this, more black professionals and leaders than any other institution in the country. Imagine what would happen if we erased all the debt. Voting plays a crucial role in this, because those in office decided whether that relief becomes a reality. Erasing student loan debt is more than just numbers. It's about erasing barriers to success and unlocking economic power. Money is power. When you have access to capital and you have access to money, you are now creating wealth that you would not otherwise have. So now you think about individuals that are in their 20s and you're counseling debt. They now can go buy a house debt-free because they don't have access to debt. Debt can be it can be such a barrier, it can be such a weight that you realize that I gotta work, I'm working 2 jobs just to pay off these student loans. And a lot of people are. And some people are making $9,000 and $1,000 payment on student loan debt to pay off the student loan. That's a mortgage. So imagine if you erase student loan debt, I can get a much lower mortgage payment because now I don't have a student loan debt. It is crucial. So your vote matters in this election. The impact of not voting. What's at stake? When we don't vote, we hand over control of our future to someone else. The policies that affect funding HBCUs, criminal justice reform, healthcare, and yes, student loans, often decide by people who don't have our best interests at heart. If we stay silent, listen to this, we're giving them the mic to speak for us. An HBCU student who has been on the forefront of movements can afford now to sit at the table. You no longer can say, I don't want to vote. My vote doesn't matter. If you want to sit at the table, vote. And then your voice can be heard. And you can say, no, that's going to impact my community where I live. It's going to impact the students that we serve. It's going to impact those that are in Title I schools in elementary and high school and impoverished communities. We need to be able to put the money back in the communities so that our kids now have access to equal opportunity education. So when they get to college, they're not facing debt. We want to be able to put our kids through school and they don't come out owing anybody. We want to be able to access grants. We want to be able to access scholarships. So it's important that we pour into our communities economic funding so that our schools can now produce scholars at elementary, middle school, and high school levels. We're not just going to wait till they get to college. We need them to be products of high standards at elementary, middle school, and high school levels. So that when they get to high school, that's just overflow. We got to start early with our kids because education is the key to getting at the table. The power of the people. We can only embrace the power of the people when we come together as a community. We got a rich history in activism, from the Freshman Four to the HBCU-led movements. We didn't just start this thing, but we got to get in the movement with this thing. You've got to get at the table, and wherever that movement takes us, be a part of that movement. But now it's time to take the energy and then move it to the voting booth. That same energy, when we out here saying we want equal access, get to the polls and vote. Voting is not just about policy. It's about survival, growth, and ensuring the next generation of HBCU students can build on the legacy without having crushing debt. It's about giving ourselves the financial freedom to thrive. The system won't change unless we demand it. Let me say it again. It's not going to change unless you put some demands on it and say, no, this will not happen to me. Because I'm going to be at that table and I'm going to be important in making decisions. It starts with the power of the vote. So now I want to lay out for you a couple bullet points of what Project 2025 will do to HBCUs if Trump is elected. This is what this policy would do for us. Number one, it would dismantle the Department of Education. You heard me right. It will dismantle the Department of Education. Project 2025 proposes eliminating the Department of Education, which would impact the entire, listen to this, the entire higher education system that will greatly impact HBCUs. The elimination of federal loan programs. This plan seeks to cut out all federal student loan programs. This would block current efforts for student loan forgiveness, eliminate income-driven repayment options, disproportionately harming Black students and HBCU graduates who already face higher debt levels. Number three, it would reduce access to higher education. Without affordable financing option, many African American students could find it harder to access higher education at HBCUs, exacerbating existing inequalities. Number four, cutting DEI and minority-based funding. This proposal could also include removing federal funding from institutions that support diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as minority-based scholarships, which are crucial to HBCUs. Number five, reduce Title V funding. Project 2025 will likely reduce or eliminate this funding, which include grants and financial aid that many HBCUs depend on support for low-income students, deepening financial struggles, and worsening racial disparities in education. It would increase deregulation. It would deregulate educational institutions and will make it difficult for HBCUs to secure funding. In other words, HBCUs, without the funding for federal funding, it would make it hard for that institution to survive. The final statement for this is Project 2025 poses a direct threat to financial stability of HBCUs and could reverse decades, listen to this, decades of progress in expanding financial educational access to Black communities. So what am I saying? We're not going back. We cannot go back. We can't afford to go back. There are too many people who died. There are too many lives at stake. And there's too much at stake in this election that you cannot say, I will not vote. Because Project 2025 cannot be our lot. Project 2024 is what we're pushing for. And what is that? Get out to vote. Cast your vote November the 5th. Because I want you to understand something. My education from my alma mater was the best education I ever received. The culture, the diversity, the community, the connections, the family unit that we developed on campus, you can't buy that. I mean, you can't buy it. It's one of those things that I tell people you just have to experience it. North Carolina A&T is known as the greatest homecoming on earth, which will be happening in the next couple of weeks. And one of the things I look at when I go to homecoming every year, the experience. So listen, guys, if you want to be part of the experience of an HBCU and get an education that may not get anywhere else, cast your vote. So all my fellow Aggies that are tuning in today, I need for you to encourage previous Aggies, current Aggies, get out to vote. Your vote matters. Keep pushing, keep questioning, and above all else, keep using your voice. If you're an HBCU student or alumni, I need for you to know your black vote matters. Get out to vote. Let's change hands. But more than anything, let's change voices in this election. Let's think about it with Dr. E.